Bonjour à toutes et à tous. Donc je suis Raphaël Chemillazan, je suis le directeur général de l'ONG internationale Anciens contre la peine de mort, basée ici à Paris. Notre ONG lutte pour l'abolition universelle partout dans le monde. Nous sommes une organisation reconnue sur les questions relatives à la peine de mort partout, sur tous les sujets. Depuis maintenant depuis 14 ans, nous collaborons avec Human Rights et Mahmoud Mogadam, ici présent. Nous collaborons pour la sortie, le travail aussi de plaidoyer qui se fait autour de la peine de mort en Iran et de ce rapport annuel sur la peine de mort en Iran. Cette année, ce rapport sort dans un contexte bien particulier. Depuis septembre 2022, la jeune Gina Mahsa Amini, qui passait ses congés à Téhéran, n'est jamais revenue vivante du commissariat. Et c'est le début d'un mouvement incroyable en Iran qui a touché toutes les strates de la population, toutes les communautés, toutes les strates sociales, culturelles et intellectuelles. Ce mouvement fait vaciller très clairement le pouvoir iranien. Et le 6 novembre 2022, 227 parlementaires iraniens ont appelé le pouvoir judiciaire à exécuter les manifestants et à remettre de l'ordre en Iran. Ce message, il a été entendu. Nous pouvons d'ores et déjà vous dire qu'il y a eu en 2022 582 exécutions que l'on a pu documenter avec Human Rights sur le terrain, dont seulement 12% de ces exécutions ont été officialisées par le pouvoir iranien. 582 exécutions, c'est une augmentation de 75% par rapport à l'année précédente et de 120% par rapport à 2020. Il faut remonter à 2015 pour avoir autant ou plus d'exécutions, ce qui nous montre que la peine de mort, dans le cas précis, a été très clairement utilisée dans une optique de répression et de message politique pour intimider par la violence le peuple iranien. Ce rapport que vous voyez ici est un rapport complet qui vous donnera toutes les informations sur le nombre de femmes. Il y a 16 femmes qui ont été exécutées selon nos chiffres en 2022, 3 mineurs, 3 enfants ont été exécutés en 2022 également. Et puis, ce qui est important, nous parlons d'une utilisation politique de la peine de mort, un instrument de terreur pour intimider. Elle intimide les manifestants, elle intimide les femmes et les hommes iraniens, mais elle intimide aussi les communautés ethniques qui fondent le paysage iranien. L'Iran est une mosaïque d'ethnies. Il y a une disproportion des exécutions en Iran, très clairement contre les Kurdes, contre les Azéris, contre les Awaz, et principalement cette année contre la communauté baloutche. À titre d'exemple, les Baloutches représentent 3 à 6% de la population, et aujourd'hui, en 2022, en tout cas sur l'année 2022, on représentait plus de 30% des exécutions. Donc pour nous lançons un appel vibrant à la communauté internationale pour que la question de la peine de mort et la question des droits de l'homme en Iran soient au cœur de toutes les discussions entamées avec le régime iranien. Discussions bilatérales, discussions multilatérales, discussions onusiennes. Toutes les discussions doivent aborder la question de la peine de mort pour que ça ne soit pas naturel, pour que ce ne soit pas une réalité qui perdure dans le temps. C'est une première chose. Et puis nous appelons l'Iran, évidemment, à ouvrir ses portes aux missions d'enquête qui ont été diligentées par le Conseil des droits de l'homme en novembre dernier, et puis aux différents rapporteurs spéciaux des Nations Unies, et en particulier le premier d'entre eux, le rapporteur spécial pour les droits de l'homme en Iran. Je vous remercie à toutes et à tous d'être présents. Je remercie aux journalistes et aux médias de pouvoir porter la réalité de la situation dans ce pays, parce que c'est en faisant savoir ce qui se passe que l'Iran sera dans une situation inconfortable qui ne lui permettra pas d'avoir les mains libres pour exécuter sa population comme elle a pu le faire dans le passé. Je vous remercie.
Thank you so much, Rafael. It's a pleasure to be here, and thanks to ECPM to organize this and for cooperating with us in publication of this report. Soon it will be, I think it's 12 years now. So what our annual report shows is a dramatic increase in the number of executions, 75% increase. 582 people at least have been executed. And we fear that this number in 2023 will be much higher if the political cost of these executions do not increase. So this is what we want. We want the international community to show the same reaction that they did towards the protesters who were sentenced to death, because we believe that the strong international reaction saved many lives. Iranian authorities, after the protests started, after the murder of Jina Mahsa Amini, they started with mass trials. More than 100 were facing charges punishable by death, and they started executions. But the very strong international reaction raised the political cost of these executions. So that's, we believe, is the reason why they can't or they haven't been executing more protesters. Not that they don't want to. But on the other hand, we see a dramatic increase in the execution of prisoners who are less known, especially those who are sentenced to death for drug-related charges. We see a more than 100% increase in the number of drug-related executions compared to last year, and 10 times increase compared to 2020. I don't think you find any other country that has increased number of executions by 10 times in 2 years. And these drug-related executions, they haven't been met with a single reaction, international reaction. We know that the United Nations Office for Drugs and Crimes, they have projects inside Iran. There are countries, both European and non-European countries, funding UN projects inside Iran, and they haven't shown any reaction to a 10-time increase in number of drug-related executions. These prisoners, who are from the marginalized parts of the society, and about half of them are Baluch citizens, they are the low-cost victims of the Iranian regime's killing machine. I call it killing machine because we don't have an independent judiciary in Iran. The judiciary is part of the repressive organ, repressive system. Prisoners very often do not have access to lawyers. They are sentenced to death based on confessions extracted under torture. So it is a killing machine. The regime uses low-cost victims to spread fear in the society. The aim is not to combat crime, because 43 years experience of executions has shown that crime not only haven't gone down, but they are increasing, both drug-related crimes and violent crimes. But they still continue these executions because the aim is to spread fear in the society to prevent protests. We know that Iranian people, they started the protest. I don't think the regime has managed to control these protests, although we don't see the demonstrations, daily demonstrations in the larger cities. But it's just a question of time when it will explode again. The regime knows it very well, so to prevent it, they will need to create more fear. And death penalty is their most important instrument. So this is the reason why we fear that number of executions will be dramatically increased in 2023 if the international community doesn't react now. Before ending, I would also like to say that the report that we have published, more than 88% of the cases that we have documented in this report, they haven't been announced by the Iranian authorities. So this report is made thanks to our sources inside Iran, inside the prisons, the families, the lawyers, and activists who basically risk their lives by sending this information to us. We only include cases that are confirmed by 2 independent sources, so the actual number is much higher. 2022 was also the year when public executions came back after a pause of about 2 years because of COVID. Iranian authorities executed 2 people, one of them a protester, in public spaces. Again, I think these 2 years of pause due to COVID gave us an opportunity to make public executions more intolerable for both the society and for the international community. So I hope that the international community will react much stronger next time Iranian regime wants to execute people in public. We are living in 2023. We can't tolerate that people are hanged on the streets in front of children. I would also like to emphasize, as Rafael said, that Iran continues execution of juveniles. Since 1990, more than 75% of all juvenile executions have happened in Iran. Right now, Iran is probably the only country executing juveniles every single year. This cannot be tolerated. In 2023, we cannot tolerate that children are executed. So I think the international community can do a lot to reverse this trend. Increasing the political cost is very important, but pushing for change in the law and practice, as they did when it comes to the drug-related executions in 2017. From an average of 400 drug-related executions every year, it dropped to below 30. It was, I would say, the most significant change we have seen in number of executions in the positive direction. But it's been reversed, so we need sustained international pressure. The same with juvenile executions, the same with public executions. And when it comes to the largest group that is executed in Iran, they are sentenced to death for murder. It's called qisas, an eye for an eye. Iranian authority, they put the responsibility of these executions on the families of the murder victims. However, we see that increasing number of families say no to the death penalty. Last year, the number of people, families of murder victims who choose forgiveness or diya, they were 3 times higher than those who choose qisas or death penalty retribution. So, qisas is not something Iranian people want. It's something that the regime is insisting on. They say that it is the right of the murder victims' families. This is probably the only of their rights that they insist to respect, because they don't respect any of the other rights people in Iran have. So our call is a stronger focus on the death penalty in Iran. Every execution in Iran is a political execution, regardless of the charges. and international community should react strongly to each and every execution that happens in Iran. Thank you.
Merci. Donc, Mahmoud et Raphaël sont disponibles pour vos questions et seront également disponibles par la suite pour des entretiens individuels avec les radios et la CPM. Questions?
Est-ce qu'il y a des questions?
Just Stuart from AFP, just to specify, Mahmoud, about what we talked about earlier, do you fear there's a real chance that the number of executions this year could exceed that from 2015, which I think you have down as 972? I think you said that there have been 100, you've counted over 150 executions in the first few months of this year. Do you fear that if this pace is kept up, there could be a very unwelcome record at the end of the year?
Yes, absolutely. And this is a real fear, because we should keep in mind that now I think the numbers are closer to 160 executions. And this is despite the fact that we have had Nowruz, the Iranian New Year's holidays, where normally there are no executions. And we also see that majority, more than 50% of those executed, they are for drug crimes. And this is what happened in 2015 as well. And normally the summer months and the fall, they are the months with higher number of executions. Each time we get closer to an anniversary, for example, in September next year. So we fear that unless international community reacts very strongly, already now we might face a year with unprecedented number of executions, maybe more than in the last 20 or 30 years. I would also like to say, to thank, Iran has an abolitionist movement inside the country, and the foreword of this report is written by Athena Daemi, an activist who has been in prison for many years, also for her opposition to death penalty. And she has written, taking the risk of writing the foreword of this report. So again, I think death penalty is not something Iranian people want. It's an instrument of the Iranian regime.
Je voudrais rebondir sur ce que dit Mahmoud. Nous travaillons depuis l'Europe, Mahmoud depuis la diaspora, Iran Human Rights depuis la diaspora. C'est un travail minutieux, c'est un travail compliqué qu'on ne pourrait pas faire s'il n'y avait pas des femmes et des hommes en Iran qui nous aidaient et qui nous envoyaient toutes ces informations. Mahmoud l'a redit, ils prennent des vrais risques, des risques pour leur vie. Ils risquent d'être incarcérés, mais ils risquent eux-mêmes d'être condamnés à mort juste pour ce qu'ils font. Athena Daemi est une militante incroyable qui lutte auprès de nous pour l'abolition de la peine de mort depuis des années. Je voudrais aussi citer Narges Mohammadi, qui font tous les deux partie d'un mouvement, l'EGAM, qui est un mouvement qui est basé en Iran et qui depuis plusieurs années exprime la voix des Iraniens contre la peine de mort. Et c'est important que la voix des ONG internationales s'exprime, mais que leur voix, et nous essayons de faire passer leur voix à travers ce rapport et à travers notre plaidoyer pour l'abolition de la peine de mort en Iran. Narges Mohammadi a eu la citoyenneté d'honneur de la ville de Lyon en décembre dernier. Nous avions poussé à ce qu'elle l'ait. C'est aussi en ayant des reconnaissances et en mettant que ces visages et ces noms soient des noms reconnus. Ça les protège. Narges, même s'il est en prison aujourd'hui, Athena et d'autres.
Hello, Mahmoud. It's nice to see you in Paris. I would like you to tell us about the numbers of women executed in Iran. I think it's very important to know about that.
Yes, so I think Iran continues being the world's largest executioner of women. Last year, 16 women were executed, 13 of them for murder charges. And, we have published a report on women executions in the last 10 years. And majority of women executed in Iran, although they are sentenced for murder, but if you look at their history, you see that there is history of child marriage, there is history of domestic violence. Atena Dami has actually written a part on the women execution because she was in the prison where there were women sentenced to death, and the fact that women do not have right to divorce. So it is very complicated why these women end up there, and we should also keep in mind that the judicial system in Iran discriminates between men and women. So a woman's testimony is worth half a man's testimony. So all this together, I think, makes the execution of women a phenomenon that I hope that receives more attention.
La révolution, depuis septembre, ça a d'abord été une révolution des femmes iraniennes. Et on s'aperçoit que le système judiciaire vise les femmes en premier lieu, les discrimine parce qu'elles sont femmes. On a rappelé les mariages forcés, les mariages des mineurs, les violences domestiques. Toutes ces raisons font que les femmes prennent de plein fouet la peine de mort ou le pouvoir judiciaire dans les peines, et les peines lourdes. En ce moment, il y a un film en Europe et en France en particulier qui s'appelle 7 hivers à Téhéran, sur le cas de Rihanna Jabari et de sa mère, Shirley Pravan, et qui montre encore une fois la détresse des femmes. Et la peine de mort est une histoire de femmes en Iran, comme finalement la liberté et l'émancipation que porte la révolution depuis septembre dernier.
So, just adding, although my French is not so good.
It's good.
So you see, so these women, more than half of them are sentenced to death for murdering their husbands. So that's where this, the law that they are not allowed to, they don't have the right to divorce, and comes into the picture. But one good thing is that international community is more sensitive towards execution of women, and this is something that we hope will continue, will increase, but we also hope that other executions get also more attention.
S'il n'y a pas d'autres questions, Mahmoud et moi sommes à votre disposition. Alors, on ne peut pas se dupliquer, on peut se dupliquer qu'en deux. Moi, je peux faire les interviews aussi en anglais si vous le souhaitez, en français. Mahmoud seulement en anglais ou en farsi. Et farsi. Voilà, dites-nous. Et puis merci.